Hello everybody, this is the introduction for Module 5, Oral Language and Vocabulary. In this module, we are going to refresh some important language development concepts. Our agenda for today has 6 items. Number 1, oral language. Number 2, academic and social language. Comprehension and oral language. Vocabulary, connection to AAC, and housekeeping. The first thing that we want to do today is we want to explore the unspoken rules of conversation. And I would like you to think about what are some unspoken rules of conversation that our students need to know in order to be successful in school and outside of school. I would also like you to take a minute and think about what things you already do in your classroom to develop your students' oral language and vocabulary through conversation. Let's start by talking about oral language. What is oral language? Oral language is a system, and it's the system you use to express our knowledge, our ideas, and our feelings. It involves both listening and speaking. In biliteracy classrooms, when we talk about oral language, we also have to talk about oracy. Oracy is the process where students learn through talk. When they talk and discuss, they are deepening their understanding of concepts through rich dialogue supported by teachers and peers. Let's work in defining academic and social language. When we talk about social language, we're talking about BICS, basic interpersonal communicative skills. Everyday language that we need for daily and social interactions, such as classroom routines, conversations with friends, interactions in the park. When we talk about CALP, we're talking about cognitive academic language proficiency. This is a type of language students need to think critically, understand content, understand new concepts, and cognitively process complex academic material, and also interact in a meaningful way in an academic context. Let's take a look at academic language skills. When we talk about academic language, we're talking about those formal structures that we use when we are in school. Academic language are the structures usually used in books. When we talk about academic language skills, we are talking about the skills that allow students to use and comprehend academic language. And academic language skills are split into 3: inferential language skills, narrative language skills, and academic vocabulary knowledge. When we talk about inferential language skills, we're talking about the ability to discuss topics beyond their immediate context. When we talk about narrative language skills, we're talking about the ability to clearly relate a series of events. And when we talk about academic vocabulary knowledge, we're talking about the ability that children have to comprehend and use words and grammatical structures that are common in formal writing. Let's look at comprehension and oral language. When we talk about comprehension, we have to talk about listening comprehension, oral language comprehension, and reading comprehension. Listening comprehension is the process of making meaning of spoken language. When we talk about oral language comprehension, we're talking about the ability to listen and speak with understanding. When we move on to reading comprehension, we're talking about the process of making meaning of written texts. When you go through the module, we would like you to focus on which of these 3 types of comprehension develops first in young children, and also what are the implications of this development in your classroom. When we talk about vocabulary development, we have to think about the different type of vocabulary children need. We talk about Tier 1 words, and those are very basic words needed for everyday communication. We also have Tier 2 words that are high-frequency words that are a little bit more mature. These are some words that require instructional attention. But we also have Tier 3 words, words that are low-frequency words that are specific to a field. These are words that are typically defined in the text and that we have to explicitly teach to our children. As you go through the module and you come across information about how oral language develops and how we teach oral language in the classroom, we would like you to focus your attention to the adaptive action cycle. and engage in some reflection. You may want to consider your last year's classroom, but you may also want to consider the kids that you have this year. Start by focusing on number one, what? What type of patterns do you notice regarding language development in your classroom? When you move on to the so what, you can ask yourself, what are the meanings of those patterns? And number three, in the now what, once that you have identified the meaning of those patterns, we want you to think about what would be your next logical step. This is a conversation that you can have with your team, with a peer, or maybe you want to think about it and reflect on your own and come up with a good reflection on the language development in your classroom. We would also like you to consider content area connections when we're talking about language development. This is not only worked in the reading language arts class, but it also could be developed through content area subjects. Every content area provides an opportunity to introduce new vocabulary and to keep students engaged in the development of oracy, vocabulary, and oral language. If you are in a biliteracy environment, you also use these opportunities to use oracy and foster a deeper understanding through conversations with peers and the teacher. And the Padlet link that we're providing along with this presentation, we would like you to think about one thing that stood out to you in this presentation, two things that were a review to you, and three things that you would like to review further. In the housekeeping section of today, we only have 3 items. Number 1 is the timeline. If you don't have an updated version, please let me know and I'll email you the updated version. Please note that you will have ample opportunity to catch up with modules 4 and 5 during the month of August and September. We also want to talk about discussions, and one of the most important things would be for you to stick to the prompt in the discussions. In the discussions, they are providing us with some thinking points, and we have to use those thinking points to develop our answers in the discussion boards. Also, we want to talk about the pre and post tests and clarify these pre and post tests cannot be taken a second time, so we would strongly suggest you to take your time, especially in the post test. If you have questions about the module, if you have questions about the presentation, you can certainly contact me. Thanks for watching and have a great week.